Hello and welcome to Weird Around Illinois. Today we're going to talk about something I don't believe we've ever talked about before, even though it is a phenomenon that has occurred in Illinois, and that's crop circles. So let's get weird. So some of you may be wondering, what is a crop circle? Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a circle or other shape that has been formed in the middle of a field, like a wheat field or barley field or corn field, any sort of large, tall field. The key, though, is it's made by flattening the crops, not by cutting them down. So it kind of gives the impression that something heavy, like laid down on the crops, like a spaceship or something, to flatten them. And as the name implies, they're often circular, either like one big circle or several concentric circles or circles connected by a line or things like that. And there are many theories on how these things are made. I mean, obviously, some people think they're made by UFOs, some people think they're made by some sort of gravitational wave from a UFO or from some aircraft of some sort. Others believe that they're made by people, hoaxsters just trying to fool people into thinking these things are something that they're not. And there are ways to do that. I mean, one of the traditional ways to make a crop circle is just to flatten the things with a board. And, you measure out your pattern and mark it however you're going to mark it, and then you use a board and flatten it. People have also used like chains hooked up to a post to make a perfect circle just by walking in a circle holding the chain out. The ingenuity of human beings, especially human beings trying to fool other human beings, is limitless. So if somebody wants to make a crop circle, they can do it. But it's an awful lot of effort. So that leads us to, why are there these crop circles? What do they mean? Well, are they messages from extraterrestrials? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes.
There's some theories that say that these are basically like road signs, sort of, for like ships that could be above, like UFOs or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And they could be pointing toward resources that they may need, like fuel or water.
Yeah, these things have been shown to be very symbolic in a lot of ways. Also, I don't know if you already said this, but I think the most stereotypical thing when I see these crop circles, or when many people see those, is like the landing of a UFO, the typical, what's the shape?
Like a saucer shape.
Yeah, saucer shape, just landing down and creates a weird circle, then just leaves.
And some of the more complex ones, you think to yourself, could that be the landing gear? Like when you have one big circle and two small circles attached to it or something?
Yeah, like maybe it just so happens to have jets underneath that burns it all, I don't know.
Yeah.
Whoever would be piloting these UFOs would have to be really smart to understand these exact marks.
Right. And they're mathematical in nature. A lot of people have analyzed them and found that they're mathematically precise. And they say that mathematics is the universal language. If an alien comes here, they're not going to speak English or Spanish or French, but they'll speak math. And so by leaving us these mathematically precise symbols, not only could they be communicating to each other, they could also be communicating to us. They could be leaving these things waiting for us to be smart enough to understand what they're saying.
Yeah, it's possible.
I just hope that the sign that they're putting up isn't these people are crazy, just stay away from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the warning zone sign.
Yeah. Don't go in there. That's that's a whole lot of stuff you don't want to deal with on Earth. Just leave it be.
Yeah.
Or I suppose it could possibly be a sign maybe for Mothman to come by or something. Maybe it has something to do with Mothman. I don't know.
Could be.
So now that we know a lot of different, ideas of why these things are made, there are quite a few examples of these crop circles. And one of them being an older one in Millen, Illinois, western Illinois near Iowa. It was in 1990. A person named James Lawson found a perfect circle of flattened corn in the middle of his field. Now, yeah, that's like the most stereotypical version. I don't know if this is where it came into popularity with these kind of things, but
Oh no, they've been around forever. But this was one of the most notable ones in Illinois, though.
yeah, so one of the most significant anyway, as I said.
Mm-hmm.
When police were involved, they claimed it was a hoax because they found a hole in the middle of the cornfield, like right in the center, I'm assuming, of the circle,
Mm-hmm.
where there was some kind of pole that may have been planted or post. And as we discussed before, you mentioned where they could go around in a perfect circle if they just attach a chain to it and something sharp.
Yeah, or they could, even if they were to just extend the chain and then walk in a perfect circle, putting those boards down to flatten the crops, they could achieve it that way too. But it would the chain measured from a center point would give them like a perfect circle. Yeah.
The only thing that would make me wonder is if it was once more mathematically perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming they didn't go into that deep of stuff with the circle, but
probably not.
With how exact these shapes seem to be, it's really strange because when we're children, we're taught how to match shapes together and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
If it was from aliens, let's say, they would really have to be taught that stuff.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if they go through similar educational processes that we do.
Yeah.
Are shapes a major part of their learning as well?
However, to add weight to this one alone, 8 miles away, only a month later, there was another similar sighting. Mike Thompson found a very similar 64-foot circle in his cornfield. So, that's very odd to be somewhat close and only a month away.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Now, one of the reasons that the police suspected that it wasn't a real crop circle, as these things started cropping up in that area, in addition to the post in the first one, or the hole for a post in the first one, they said that one of there was actually a letter sent to the police or to the local newspaper predicting where another crop circle would be. Now, what I didn't get is whether or not that crop circle ever actually appeared. But clearly somebody was either hoaxing or they were hopping on the bandwagon and pretending to be somehow in control of these crop circles.
Okay, well that changed the whole scenario then for that.
And I don't think that applied to either of these first two sightings. I think it was later ones.
Oh, that was something else.
Yeah, but in the same area.
Huh.
And in the same time frame, the 1990s. The 1990s, or the 1990 specifically, there was this big rash of kind of supernatural activity in central, western, and southern Illinois.
So yeah, definitely a prime time for crop circles.
Yeah, weren't there a couple more found down there in that area?
Yeah, there were more in southern and central Illinois, Plymouth, and Culver, Illinois.
Yeah.
Those both had more.
And then, in addition to that, you've got other weird activity.
Yeah, a plague of UFO sightings were in the area in 1990. Now, I don't have a lot of information on that, but for a UFO to be sighted, I'm assuming within miles, only a few miles of it, that would make a lot of sense for the crop circles.
Yeah, definitely. And there was a guy who wrote a book about the sightings in 1990, but his research centered on Indiana. But his book contains several sightings in Illinois as well. But there, again, it was a weird year. 1990 was, in this part of the Midwest, there was just a lot going on in the skies and the fields, apparently.
Yeah, sounds like it. So in 2006, near Belleville, Illinois, 13 unexplained crop circles from 15 to 50 feet. I guess crop circles came out of nowhere or something, I don't know.
Just kind of appeared.
Yeah, in a soybean field. That's southwest Illinois.
Yeah, so I'm assuming with all these, the crops were squished somewhat, laid down.
Yeah. That's a classic crop circle if they're squished. I mean, if they're cut, you almost assume it's a person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a lot of crop circles. I mean, 13 in 1 year, and they range in size from 15 to 50 feet. That makes me think that, it's not somebody with like a crop circle tool, who's out there cutting a 15-foot spot every time. This is something, different sized that is pushing these things down.
Yeah, I mean, how much do you want to waste your time doing something like that?
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, I know you get bored in the country, but I can't picture myself being bored enough to go and cut a precise circle or fold a precise circle into somebody's crop, especially as we've discussed in previous podcasts. Farmers have guns, and these are their livelihood. This isn't just a decorative thing. You're destroying, something that this guy was going to sell for food to make money for his family. And on a human decency level, you'd think you wouldn't do it, but on the other level, I would worry about getting shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I just for a joke, it seems kind of stupid.
Yeah, it does. Stupid and a waste of time.
Yeah.
Maybe just draw like a big red circle around a field, like a clear field would be funnier, but like on crops, that's kind of wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently in 2009, pranksters made a crop circle in a cornfield in Prairie du Rocher, Illinois. That's southern Illinois.
Interesting.
I'll give you what I think is the French pronunciation. Prairie du Rocher.
Getting fancy over here.
I could be wrong. It just when I look at it, it just screams like some Louisiana township or something with French Canadians. But one of those pronunciations is probably close, either yours or mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one was definitely a prank.
Yeah. Apparently they used a pickup truck to make a large, imperfect circle. I feel like it would have to be, really imperfect for it to be a pickup truck.
Yeah, and that, to me, that's a classic hoax. I mean, if the circle's not perfect and you find, tire tracks in the middle of it and everything else, I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's why some of these other ones cause me to raise an eyebrow, because they do seem perfect.
And that could have been because probably in the 90s there wasn't as much studying when it came to these things. I mean, I wasn't born there, so I could be completely wrong. But maybe just then they decided to really take a closer look to these things.
Yeah. But the hoax, I mean, I imagine there was probably some damage done, right?
Yeah, $10,000 worth of damage.
Ouch.
And that's not terribly surprising, considering it's literally property.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's somebody's crop, it's somebody's livelihood, and they're just out there joyriding in a pickup truck. Of course, that makes me wonder how many thousands of dollars worth of crops they ruined making mountain monsters. 'Cause remember how many they were always stomping through cornfields and knocking stuff down,
and getting out the machete and chopping up.
Yeah. So did they catch the guys who did this?
Apparently 3 youths and 1 adult were charged with felony.
Ooh, okay. Probably because of the large amount of damage done. I guess a felony is... I know for theft, a felony is anything over $500, I think. But, so I imagine damage, it's probably... There's some number that you have to cross as well before it becomes a felony.
So would they have to pay the damage of the property as well?
Depends on the court. I mean, my guess is in this case they'd probably have to pay a fine equal to the damage, and then they might have to do a little bit of jail time too, or juvenile hall time for the underage ones.
Interesting.
So as we look at these different scenarios, we have one clear hoax. We have a couple things that may have been hoax, may have been real. And of course, we've got history going back 100 years or possibly more, of crop circles around the world that have been created, geometrically perfect, but, in farmers' fields and in areas where somebody could do a hoax. I guess my question is, do you think there are real crop circles out there? Do you think there are real, unexplainable ones that are caused by something other than teenagers out joyriding?
Yeah. From just the ones that I've come across up in the internet. There's been a lot of more historical ones, not just in Illinois, but like I think there's one in Ohio, a couple more where there's fields. And there's some that just aren't just a circle. There's a lot more detail in some of them, which could lead to me believing that they were not just a bunch of teenagers running around like going in a truck.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be more than that.
I personally think they're not from aliens or anything. I think they actually might be humans. Because I'm sure I've seen this in like TV shows and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
There's like big production crews and stuff. I could really imagine them like faking it just to put it onto their TV channel to make it look like, look, this is unexplained.
Ancient aliens. Oh man.
Well, there were a couple guys named Trolley and Bauer, and I think they were among the first to report like alien crop circles. And this was in the 60s, and I believe it was in England. And they eventually admitted that they were hoaxes. They actually got their inspiration from crop circles in Australia that they had seen. And some of those were actually created naturally by like little cyclones or circular winds that caused a perfect circle of grass or whatever to be flattened. But these guys went to great lengths to create their crop circles. They flattened them. They basically got drunk one day and decided that they were going to pull a prank. So I guess the problem I have with this is in 1960 or 1966, whenever this was, they didn't have drones.
Oh.
So how could you create something that looks so perfect from the air? I mean, my understanding is these guys did smaller crop circles, and they seemed to be perfect circles, but again, nobody could really check them from the air, so nobody could tell how perfect they were.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But for these big, elaborate things that we've seen pictures of, some of which were made in the 80s or the 70s before there were drones, how would a couple dudes just get out there and do that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
As we talked about before, it would take a lot of effort, and somebody has to have a lot of time on their hands. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it just, wow, that's somebody who needs a better hobby.
Yeah. Another reason why I don't think it would be aliens is because I think their shapes would be different than humans. Because, like I said earlier, we're taught at a very young age about certain shapes. But these aliens, if they were taught about shapes, they wouldn't be the same shapes, I would think, unless humans taught them.
Or vice versa.
Right.
But I mean, ancient astronaut theorists would tell you that aliens influenced human society from the very beginning. Therefore, we learned our shapes from the aliens, which is why we built the pyramids in a triangular shape.
Okay.
But yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, it does seem kind of arbitrary that our shapes are, circle, square, triangle, rectangle, and those are the shapes that we're seeing. And there's no reason why an alien wouldn't have some sort of a weird squiggly line, or something that looks to us like an amorphous blob that to them is like the ultimate shape of power or something.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it'd look so familiar to humans.
That's a fair point. It's a really fair point. I mean, again, unless you buy into ancient astronaut theory, which, I certainly don't fault you if you don't. I could definitely see, why you would be surprised that it would be traditional Earth shapes. It kind of goes back to the old Star Trek argument that I always have. Why is it every alien on Star Trek looks like a human with something glued on their face? The universe, I would think, is infinitely diverse, and we should be looking at all different types of beings and all different forms of communication and all different types of shapes and sounds and everything else. So I don't know. I mean, it's a good argument, but let's apply it more locally. What do you think specifically about the Illinois crop circles? I mean, does that change? The ones in Illinois, are they different than your global opinion?
Well, the ones that we've discussed, a lot of them have been closer to being hoaxes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a few more that we aren't aware of. And who knows, maybe there are a few here that are in fact real, but based on the information alone that we've seen, I'd count that most of them as hoaxes.
I think so too, because from the pictures I've seen in Illinois compared to like anywhere else, they look pretty much the same, just like familiar shapes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, particularly because Illinois seems mostly circles. And
Yeah.
that would be the easiest shape for a human to make, I would think, for the reasons we already described. And some of them have already been proven to be hoaxes, some of them are strongly suspected to be hoaxes. The only caveat I would give you is this, and that's the most common shape of a flying saucer is exactly that, a saucer, a round shape.
True.
So if these things were created by the craft landing, it would make perfect sense that they would be circular in shape. And it would make perfect sense that, particularly in 1990, when you have all those sightings of, UFOs, that the crop circles could be those UFOs landing. So I guess what I'm saying is, I'm leaning toward hoax, but I'm not going to rule out the possibility that it could be massive UFO landings as well.
That is a good point, because we've also seen or heard of UFOs that are like triangular, for example.
Yep.
And other shapes humans would recognize. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like the more we uncover, the less we actually know.
Yeah.
Which I guess is why, we're able to spend so much time talking about these things, because there are so many things that we don't know. And, there are people who claim to know, there are people who've seen things, there are people who've heard things, but, until we get some sort of massive proof rolled out, whether we're talking about cryptids or ghosts or UFOs or aliens or whatever, it's always going to be a topic of discussion. It's always going to be a question of, what do you personally believe based on how you process the same facts that everybody else has.
Yeah. Just gotta do your research and find out what you think.
Yep. So what do you think? We would love to hear your thoughts on crop circles and aliens and general weirdness in and around Illinois. So feel free to leave comments or fill out our anonymous report form if you've seen something and would like to tell us about it. And as always, thank you for listening and subscribing.